Hello, everybody. My name is Max, and welcome to our B2 First Speaking course. In this lesson, we're going to take a look at part 2, and we're going to learn how to do part 2, all the languages, things that you need to use in part 2, and how to do this part in order to get the fullest score in part 2. So without any hesitation, let's begin. All right, let's see what is part 2. So part 2 is not very difficult. Most students, they think that, oh my God, I have to talk for 1 minute. That's really difficult. I cannot maintain 1 minute. But don't worry, it's not that difficult. I'm going to tell you how easy it is. And after learning a couple of techniques in this part, you can do it even more than 1 minute. Problem is going to be that you want to talk more than 1 minute after learning how to do it, because most students at first they feel like, oh my God, 1 minute is a lot, but after they learn how to do this part, they don't know how to just reduce the things that they want to say, because they are going to pass 1 minute and you don't have much time to do that, so you cannot do it because the examiner will stop you. So let's see what it is and how we can do it. Basically, this part totally is going to last for 4 minutes, you and the other candidate, and the follow-up questions in this part. And this part, they want to see that how you can compare, contrast, describe, and give your opinion. So these are the things that they want to test in this part. The first thing in this part is that they're going to give you 2 pictures. And your job is that you need to talk about those pictures for about a minute. And nobody's going to interrupt you in this moment. So you just have to talk for about a minute and comparing those pictures. And also you have 1 question which is written, and you have to answer that question as well. Now, the question is printed on top of the pictures, on the left, right, so somewhere in that, let's say, page that they will give you. So don't worry about it. If you forgot the question, you still can read it and you can answer the question as well. Remember, you have to compare the pictures and answer the questions at the same time in that 1 minute. So you don't have extra time after that to answer the question. No, you just have to do it in that 1 minute. I'm going to tell you how to manage your time, so don't worry about it. Now, after you compare the pictures, everything is done, you're finished, there's going to be 1 follow-up question. So that follow-up question is related to your picture. For example, let me just give you some kind of an example here. Imagine I'm the examiner and you are the candidate, okay? And there's another candidate sitting next to you. And you are talking about your pictures for about a minute, and you're done and you're finished. What happens next is that I'm going to ask the other candidate, I'm the examiner, I'm going to ask the other candidate 1 question about your pictures, about the things that you described, and the other candidate should answer that question for about 30 seconds. Then other candidate is going to start with his or her pictures. So that person is going to describe that picture for about a minute. Again, after she or he finished, I'm going to ask you 1 question about their pictures. And you have to, again, answer that question for about 30 seconds, which we call it follow-up question. So the other candidate answer a question about your picture, and you answer a question about your partner's pictures. Now, what type of question? Related. Whatever the topic is, I'm going to, not me, but the examiner is going to ask you a question related to that topic. We will take a look at some examples in the future, so don't worry about that. The questions are pretty easy. Now, 1 thing that is really important in this part is that whenever the other candidate is talking, don't just switch off. Switch off is like not to listen. Try to listen all the time to the other candidate. Why? Because the examiner can ask you about your partner's opinion, or your, let's say, about their picture, about the topic that they're asking, because 100% is about the topic that your partner is talking. So it's important to know what your partner is saying and to understand the topic so you can come up with good vocabulary, good grammatical structures. Basically, you have 1 minute to prepare yourself for the topic that he or she is talking. So it's very good for you. So try to prepare yourself, look at the pictures of your partner, do not talk or say anything in this part. You can just talk when it's your turn. It's not a collaborative part. It's not group talk. It's just you with the examiner, finish the examiner with other partners. So you cannot talk when your partner is talking. But just try to understand the topic. Why? Because it's really important to get the topic, because the question is related to that topic and you are really prepared for whatever question that comes up. You know exactly what to say, and you can just use some good grammatical structures, vocabulary, good intonation, pronunciation, and everything. You can prepare it and you can come up with some good languages beforehand, so you can just use them whenever the examiner asks you. Of course, we don't know exactly what kind of question is going to be, but it's related to the topic. So you can just think about some ideas, some things about the topic, and you can prepare yourself with that follow-up question. Now, this can be, for example, let's say an example of this part. They might give you something like this, the picture, and they ask you, why might they be using their phones? And that's the question, and these are the pictures. So the question is, do I have some time to prepare myself for this part? No, you don't have any part. Immediately after the examiner gave you the pictures, you have to start talking, and you have no time to think about this part. But basically, the examiner, when the examiner is giving you the pictures, he's or he or she's explaining, the examiner is explaining to you what to do. For example, says, okay, now here are your pictures. Now you have a minute to talk about these pictures. You need to compare them and you have to answer a question on top of it. So when the examiner is giving you the instructions, you also have the pictures. So you can somehow think about what to say, and you can look at the question, look at the pictures, you can organize your sentences in that time. It's not a lot, but better than nothing. So you can just prepare yourself and organizing your thought as the examiner instructing you how to do this part. Now, let's see how we can prepare ourselves for part 2. One thing that you have to do is this 60 seconds at first, when you're practicing at first, it's, let's say, impossible to find whether you talked for 60 seconds or not. So whenever you're practicing right now at home, wherever you're practicing, you should have a timer next to yourself. Hopefully these days everybody has cell phones, so you can just use your cell phone and record yourself, or just put a timer next to yourself and try to check and track yourself for 60 seconds and stop yourself at the end, so that you understand that you're talking for 60 seconds. After doing it for 10 times, you don't need timer. You know exactly how long is a minute. So you can kind of find it, how much I need to talk to become 1 minute. But when you're taking the exam, you don't need to think about this. Why? Because the examiner will stop you after 1 minute. So you have to just talk until the examiner says, thank you. So this is how you can find out that you're done and you talk for about a minute. But when you're practicing at home, because we don't want you to speak less than 1 minute, we want you to speak more and more so that you can pass that 60 seconds, but examiners will stop you. So that's our point, because the examiner wants to see that you can still produce languages. You're not stopping too early. And this is something that examiners want to see, that you are trying to speak even more than a minute. You're not just saying like 30 seconds and that's it. No. Definitely, if you cannot maintain 1 minute, you're going to lose point. And if you talk 60 seconds and you haven't answered a question yet, or you haven't compared the pictures yet, again, you're going to lose points. So you have to manage yourself in a way that you can answer the question, compare the pictures in 1 minute. Not more than that. It's not very difficult. Practicing a couple of times will get you to that point. We're going to take a look at a lot of examples in this course, so don't worry about it. We will take a look at a lot of languages you can use, a lot of things you can say, everything. So 100% after listening to those, let's say, practices, take a look at the languages, you're going to be fine with this part, and 100% you can do it without any problem. Now, another thing that you can do in order to practice is choose a pairs of, let's say, some pairs of photos in magazines or on the internet. It's really easy to check that on Google. You can search it, and start finding some similarities and differences and practicing them and speak about them for about a minute. So this is one general practice that you can do in order to prepare yourself. But if you don't want to do that, if you say, oh, I don't know, I don't want to do that, I just have one unit or lesson here, which I put a lot of pictures for you, all for exam, and you can practice with them. Of course, as well, in these lessons that we're talking, you will see a lot of pictures as well. So you can practice with those pictures, or if you want, you can go to that lesson that we have and you can practice with those sample questions as well there. But again, if you needed more, again, feel free to search on Google and you can find more. But I'm going to give you at least 50 pictures. So that's going to be, I think, enough to practice. But again, some students need more, so no problem. You can choose it like this, as I mentioned here. And as I mentioned, before you begin speaking, always try to a little bit think quickly about how you will organize what you're going to say. It's pretty easy to do that. I'm going to give you some steps to do that. And recording yourself definitely is a very, very important practice. Why? Because you have to find your let's say stronger and weaker points. You have to understand which part of part 2 you are doing badly, which parts you're doing perfectly, so that you can just improve those parts that you're doing bad and try to use those stronger points to get a better score. So you have to just try to record your voice all the time when you're doing it and listening to it. Listen to it, check, say, oh, I didn't use this, I didn't say that, I didn't say that. Because after that, you will understand what things you have to do. And when you learn all the steps, you have to check yourself with those steps that I'm going to tell you a little bit further in this presentation. Now, one thing you have to also do is, as I mentioned, always listen carefully to the instructions that the examiners are giving you, but instructors are always the same. So that's why I told you that you have to prepare your answer while the examiner is giving you the instructions, because the instructions are always the same. Here are the pictures. Now you have a minute to talk about the pictures, and here's a question, blah, 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 blah. So it's always the same, the instructions that they're giving to you. So you don't need to just always pay 100% attention to the instructions and what they're saying. It's important to understand it's your turn. Okay, don't ignore the examiner. Just looking at the pictures, just remember that it's your turn and you have to think. And think really quickly about the things that you are going to say. And you always have the question written there. So if you forgot the question, if you say, oh my God, what was the question? Don't worry, the question is there. And you can always take a look at the question and you can answer the questions. Wish you have one question, you have to answer the question there 100%, because that's going to get you also points. If you don't answer it, you're going to lose points. Now, one thing that you got to imagine is that imagine that you're talking about the pictures to someone that is not there. Imagine somebody's on the phone and you're talking about the pictures for that person. So in that case, you have a better sense of how you should say it. For example, there are two men running at the beach. There is a girl talking on the phone. So you see, the person cannot see what you're describing, okay? So in that case, you have a better sense of what things you have to say. You have to talk about everything in those pictures. But remember, you don't need to describe the pictures in detail. You don't need to say, okay, the man is wearing a striped blue tie. No, that's very detailed. You don't have that much of a time to do that. So just have to generalize everything in the picture. You have to talk about general things in the picture, and you cannot talk about details because you don't have that amount of time. Remember, you have to talk about the similarities and differences and comparing the pictures. You do not need to describe the pictures. That's a very big mistake that I've seen the students make. They describe the pictures. There is a man, there's a woman, there's a blah, 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 there's a blah, blah, blah. No, describing is not an option here. Of course, you can do it, but no, that's not something that you can do in this part, and you should not do it. You have to compare the pictures. And it's way easier to compare the pictures than describing it and getting the full score, because Examiners are not looking for description. They're looking for you to compare the pictures, not to just describe them. Now, also, you have to talk about some things that you're not sure about the pictures, which we will talk about this. But some of the languages that you can use whenever you're not sure about what's happening in the pictures can be like, it looks like, or it might be. Now, I'm going to talk about this as well, so don't worry. Now, whenever you don't know the words, for example, you cannot name something you see, just describe it. Use different words to do that. You don't need to use a specific word and just stop yourself for 10 minutes and not saying anything, because that's nothing. You have 1 minute, so you cannot do that. You just have to move on and use other things. For example, the thing that, you don't need what is that thing. You just say the thing that she's using is blah, 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 blah. You don't know what exactly she's using, right? So you cannot name it. Just move on and say the thing and just move on and try to go to the other things that you can say. Remember, if you make a mistake, you can always come back and correct yourself, but just don't do it too many times, because you don't have much time in that case, and probably you're not going to finish the task on time. So don't do that a lot. If you made a mistake, just correct it yourself 1 time, twice, that's it. If you're making 10 mistakes, no, just move on. Just go on and try to finish the task. Probably finishing the task is more important than correcting yourself. But definitely, if you made a mistake 1 or twice, that's okay. Just correct yourself, and that's it. You're going to even get some points, because the examiners see that, okay, this person is not making errors. These are just some slips. Instead of saying he has, she said he have, and then you correct it. Oh, I mean, he has, and then you move on and talk. And try to keep talking by adding more points. We will see some languages about this, how to add more points in the next lesson. When you answer the written question, give a reason or an example. Again, we talked about a lot of languages of how to give reason, how to provide examples. In the past, of course, in this unit, we will also take a look at some of this as well. But again, we talked about it in a previous, I think, unit part 1. We talked about some of the languages you can use, which is important in order to use those things to talk more about the question. And as I mentioned, you don't need to look at your watch, because the examiner will stop you after you're finished or your time is up. So don't worry about this. And try not to speak too quickly. Why? Because if you speak really fast, probably you're going to say everything and you're going to finish before the time ends. So don't do that. Don't speak too quickly. Try to control your speed, and do not speak too slowly as well. Okay, you should speak in a fluent way, but it's not very slowly. It's not very fast, like the examiner says that, oh, this person just want to finish it. So in that case, you're going to end up after 40 seconds, you're going to finish and you don't have anything more to say. And remember, when you stop, it's really difficult to restart again, because you don't know what to say after that. Restarting is harder than keep talking and adding points. So don't do that. Do not stop yourself. Do not finish. Always try to talk and time yourself for about a minute, so that you know exactly how long is a minute. Because when you're stressed, when you're in the exam, 1 minute sometimes looks a lot. So it's better to be 100% prepared, doing it at least 10, 20 times before the test. You know everything. You can measure the time, and then prepare yourself before you go to the exam, because definitely exam is a little bit, you're nervous. So 1 minute might look a little bit more. Okay, now let's take a look at those steps that I told you how to do that. First of all, as I mentioned, when I said compare the pictures and not describe them, it means you have to talk about the similarities and differences. So this is what matters and you have to do. Some magic words that you can use in order to compare the pictures is using words like both, whereas, while. Of course, we have lots of more languages to say, which there is a lesson for that, completely a lesson I just put there for the vocabulary languages that you can use in part 2. Don't worry about it. But you can also use these words here. For example, I can say both picture shows musical instruments. Imagine if this is the picture, okay? Let's say both pictures show musical instrument, or for example, you can use whereas or while, or for example, this picture shows I don't know, violin, whereas the other picture shows a trumpet or whatever. So you can use whereas to talk about the differences, or while as well. You can use while to show differences. This picture shows a happy family, whereas the other picture shows a man having fun at the beach. Now, the stages that you have to do in this part is like this. And there are many possibilities in this part that you can do, but this is the best and easiest way that I found that you can do in order to talk for 1 minute. So first of all, what I want you to do in order to compare the pictures, you have to talk about the differences and similarities using these 4 things. Talk about who, where, and what. Talk about the differences in the pictures, about who are in the pictures, who is in the picture. For example, this picture shows a family, whereas the other picture shows, for example, a single man in an amusement park, whatever. Talk about where. It's always important to talk about where they are. For example, this picture, that family, it looks like the family is in front of a picturesque lake, whereas the other person is sitting in front of a sleeping mountainous area. You see, I'm using a lot of adjectives to describe. So I talked about where, and talk about what. What are they doing? It seems like they're just sunbathing, whereas the other person is just camping with his friends in a beautiful jungle, blah, 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 blah. So you're talking about what activity they are doing. Now, these will get you at least 30 seconds. If you talk about these 3, you can maintain 30 seconds of your time talking about who, where, what. And after that, you still have 30 seconds left. So what should I do with other 30 seconds left? Remember, if you can't do this in 30 seconds, you have to delete one of who, where, what. Okay? So if you see that, oh, I talked about who and where, and I spent 30 seconds doing this, so you should ignore what in that case. And you have to ignore what, and you have to go to the last one, which is the question. You should spend at least 30 seconds of your time, 50% of your time, talking about the question. 50% comparing, 50% answering the question. So sometimes I just put 3 things for you, who, where, what, so that you can just fill up that time of 30 seconds to talk about the pictures and comparing the pictures. Remember, it's really easy to talk about who, where, what in the pictures. You can always come up with some ideas of who, where, what in the pictures, and it's not going to be very difficult to just come up with some ideas. I just gave you a couple of examples without even looking at any pictures. Now, if you have the pictures talking about who, where, what, it's easy. It's easy to do that. And then answering the question, also, you need to at least have 30 seconds to do that. Now, what I can do in order to do that, what I can do is, first of all, as I mentioned, you have to prepare yourself by finding similarities and differences before the exam. Always put the pictures next to yourself, find 5 similarities, 5 differences as a practice before you do it as an exam-based practice. If you don't know what similarities, what differences you can find, try to do this, try to put them next to yourself and practice them. And when you're 100% ready, you can try to doing it as an exam based. Put 1 minute timer next to yourself and record your voice while you're doing it, and try to see how long does it take you to do who, where, what, and how long does it take you to answer the question. Now, is this all? No, you have to also do something else, which we call it as speculations. What is a speculation? A speculation refers to talking about the possibilities in the picture. So sometimes, for example, you look at the picture and you're not sure whether they are doing this or they're doing something else. And that's what the examiners are looking for as well. They want you to use the languages that you're not sure, talking about the possible things. that the people might be doing. Usually the examiner will ask you a question that contains the word might. So whenever you see the word might, you should always recognize that this question is also asking about speculations, possibilities. For example, why the people might be checking the time, or how safety might be important in this job. So these type of questions will always asking about a speculation. Even though if you don't have might, you should always speculate as well, because you're not 100% sure about this picture, that what is going on in this picture. So you cannot just talk about certainty. Now, what can I do if I want to speculate? So here are some useful languages that you can use to speculate the pictures and talking about the possibilities. For example, you can say perhaps they're, for example, packing the things. For example, if you look at this picture, perhaps they're packing the things for a camping, or it seems like they're moving to another city. They might have been in trouble, so they are moving. Or it could be that the kids want, for example, a weekend off, and the family is packing things to go to another city. Or it looks as if the family is happy and they're trying to put everything in the car together. It looks like, it appears. So you can just use these expressions. I gave you a couple of them here so that you can use at least 2 or 3 of them in your exam to speculate. So these things are really important. If we want to review everything that we mentioned, so we said you have to talk about what, where, and who. And when you're talking about these 3, you should speculate as well. You should not say 100% things. When you're talking about where, what, who, speculate as well. Try to talk about the things you're not sure. It seems like there is a family here. Perhaps they are doing a group activity. It seems like they're having fun in front of a beautiful beach. Or it looks as if it's a sunny day and they're all taking, I don't know, sun. You see, I'm not sure. I'm just speculating about who, where, what, and then answering the question as well. When you're answering the question, again, if you're not sure, you have to speculate. Let's say 95% of the time, we're not sure about what we are saying about the picture. So you have to speculate. Don't forget to do that. It's a must. Now, let's take a look at a real test candidate doing part 2 together. Let's see what they're doing, how they're doing it, and every details of the test together, and see what they're doing. And then we can a little bit talk about this as well. So let's listen to it and watch it, and then we can talk.
In this part of the test, I'm going to give each of you 2 photographs. I'd like you to talk about your photographs on your own for about a minute, and also to answer a question about your partner's photographs. Florine, it's your turn first. Here are your photographs. They show people who are helping other people in different situations. I'd like you to compare the photographs and say how important it is to help people in these situations. All right?
Yeah. I think in the first picture it's someone helping a soccer player because he's obviously hurt. And in the second photo, the police officer is helping. I think it must be a tourist because there is a map in the photo. And I think it's really important to help people in those situations because they're both needed help, and in the first picture the person is probably in pain because mostly when you play a sport you can get injuries. And in the second photo I think it's also very important that the police officer is willing to help the tourist because it's just I think police officers are there because they have to serve the people.
Thank you. Yeah. Maria, do you find it easy to ask for help when you have a problem?
It depends what problem I have, because sometimes when you are in different places you are shy, so you don't ask to help.
Thank you. Can I have the booklet, please?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Now, Maria, here are your photographs. They show people spending time in different gardens. I'd like you to compare the photographs and say what you think the people are enjoying about spending time in these gardens.
Okay, I can see in the first picture a woman doing gardening maybe in his house, and the second one I can see in a beautiful park, maybe near London, and we are spending time with his family. And well, the first one, the girl is planting a nice plant, and I think both are enjoying a lot these hobbies.
Thank you. Florine, which garden would you prefer to spend time in?
I think I would prefer the garden in the first picture because I think it's her own garden. And I like working in the garden with my mom and dad. So I think I would enjoy spending time in my own garden most. Yeah.
Thank you. Can I have the booklet, please?
Okay, very good, very good. So as you can see, the exam is going to be just like this. And you have about a little bit of time to look at the pictures while the examiner is describing the picture and the question for you. Florine, as you can see, she was trying to a little bit compare the pictures, whereas Maria, I think, she was trying to more describing the pictures. And she didn't use those things that we talked about, who, where, what, correctly. So if you can just use those words correctly, you will just buy some time for yourself for about 30 seconds. And you can talk even for, let's say, 40 seconds, but not really recommending to talk about those 3 for 40 seconds. 30 seconds would be enough. And just moving to the question and just try to talk about the question. And when it's about the question, try to also speculate, compare the pictures and answer the question. So it's not just about answering the question. You should just answer the questions related to the pictures. And that's what the first candidate was trying to do. Let's see the pictures together one more time. I think here is the picture, right? It says, how important is it to help people in these situations? So first of all, you have to talk about who do you see in the pictures. For example, the first picture shows a soccer player, whereas the second picture looks as if it's a tourist or is a tourist in a town. Then you can talk about similarities. I think they both need help in these situations. The first one, I think he is in some kind of a soccer field playing soccer, and I think he might have injured himself. You see, I'm just speculating. I'm not sure. He might have. I don't know. Probably. Whereas the second picture, I think she's lost in the city, judging by the map that she's having and asking the question about the city, probably about an address or something. You see, I just talked 30 seconds. Now, how important is it to help people in this situation? Now I can talk about the consequences. Can use conditionals here. I think, remember, if the question is how important, you should always come up with the importance of that. How important is it? I think both situations, it's crucial to help people in these situations. The reason why is in the first picture, There might be some damages that you cannot repair them. So it's really important to help the people on the spot, because the person might get hurt and is going to be in pain for a long time after that. Whereas the second picture, the woman might have gotten into some kind of a dangerous area if she doesn't know where to go. So it's important to help them and give them direction. Even if we can help them get a taxi or something for them, would be 100% helpful, because they're not going to get lost and end up in a dangerous situation. You see, just talk about it for almost 20 or 30 seconds as well to answer the question. So it's not a very difficult thing to do. You need a couple of practices, couple of times you need to practice just like this, and come up with just speculations and things, and comparing the pictures at the same time, and not just talking about the description or describing, like Marie was just describing, there's a blah blah blah, I can see blah blah blah, I can see blah blah blah. No, I can see, forget about this language. I can see, no. Just try to compare the picture. It looks as if, use those speculation languages, start with those words in order to compare the pictures and talking about the possibilities. Now, in the next video, we're going to talk about more about the languages you can use in each part. What kind of languages you can use to compare the pictures about who, where, what kind of languages you can use to speculate. We're going to take a look at more and more languages, and then in the other lesson we're going to take a look at least, I think, 10 examples, 10 pictures like this, and we're going to take a look at the answers. We're going to analyze the answers. We're going to analyze everything they say so that you feel 100% comfortable doing it. I think with this video you can also start practicing. You don't need other things to practice with, but again, I'm going to give you tons of more things to work on, so don't worry. Part 2 is going to be easy peasy Japanese. Let's go.